Welcome to Chatting Shit with Ostique, the podcast series where we chat about shit with inspirational people from all walks of life. Today, we are joined by the wonderful and inspiring John Felton. We hope you enjoy this conversation. John, welcome to Chatting Shit with Ostique.
Good morning, Liv.
Thank you for being here. Really happy to have you on. Today's topic is all about stomas in the military, something I've certainly never heard discussed before and never actually, if I'm completely honest, thought about before our conversation. So I'm really excited to bring that to other people today. Before we get going, would you be happy to introduce yourself and talk a little bit about your journey with ulcerative colitis?
Yeah, of course. So I'm John Felton. I've served for 18 years now, with 22 military career. Joined up 2004, and by I think probably about 2007, maybe 2008, started having symptoms of, well, I wasn't quite sure of what that might be. Obviously upset stomachs all the time, and bleeding and diarrhea, and a lot of fatigue. So obviously I had that looked into a few times. They kind of didn't diagnose, it was missed, and then eventually I fell very ill about end of 2008, 2009, and then it was quite quick to surgery then. So yeah, and then I've spent the majority of my career then in and out of surgery. Which has been fine because I've had great support. So yeah, serving in the military 18 years has been really good, considering the illness that I have obviously faced.
Can we dive a little bit into what military life with a stoma is like? I think there's so many things I want to ask about, but I guess from the first perspective, how did it impact your military career, both when you had the symptoms and then when you had surgeries? Like, how did it impact what you were able to do?
Well, the thing is, I've joined up as a physical training instructor, and obviously the kind of the clues in the name really. It's a very physical job, very active job. So you're constantly on your feet, constantly delivering, and you need to be full of energy. Something. And then suddenly when I started having these symptoms, I think I first noticed on my first tour of the Falklands, out running, and it just happened as I was out running with my friends, and I was wearing his socks at the time, forgot my socks, and we were out quite a while. I said, sorry, my stomach's really bad. And so we had to kind of veer off, find a space, just go as I was, because it was just that urgency. That he used his socks as well. He was devastated. I bought him back. But that was the first time I really started noticing that these symptoms were out of control. I think I got back then. I was about to take part of the guard service out on one of the runs at my unit, which was RAF Valley at the time. And I had a lot of pain coming from down the testicular area, which is obviously obviously men, testicular, that kind of age group. But obviously I couldn't. That's where I thought it was coming from. So I went to the hospital. Like I said, spent a bit of time there. They were couldn't diagnose, but they said, maybe a little bit of flare, inflammation around the gut when they put the camera in. And that was the beginning of it all, really. And like I said, it was quite a rapid kind of downhill from there, from diagnosis to having surgery. I mean, because the surgery happens quite quickly, and I was in my first tour, and obviously then had to come away from work, had to go back into rehab, recover from the surgery, and then try and get myself back to fitness. Bear in mind, I was only about 4 years into my career, and this was like, well, is this my career over with? I've had bag at the time. Obviously, I was looking at reversal because hopefully that would have stood me in good stead to save my career. And I guess just the mindset of trying to stay positive and just, being physically active. I just wanted to get back to my job and do what I could. So, as with everything military banter, is quite renowned. I was back into a working environment, a very alpha male and alpha female, I should.
Mm-hmm.
And do you know what? That really helped in some ways. They were kind of pushing me on, and just kind of just really kind of giving me the motivation to go forward. And yeah, so I got through my rehab, and then I obviously got back in for surgery, back and forth. But ultimately, what we're looking at is the military really did give me the time to recover. Now we have a process, as you probably know, we've discussed before that I'm a physical training instructor by trade, and then I've qualified as an exercise rehab instructor. Partly because of everything I went through, and I know then how important it is to kind of help people that are injured, sick, or ill. And
Yeah.
I think we understand in the military you need that time. And yeah, I think it was a difficult time to go through, but I had the right people around me to kind of push me forward. Yeah, and here I am 18 years later.
That's amazing that they were so supportive, because that was going to be one of my
Yeah,
questions. I wasn't sure whether they would have been, but that's fabulous to know. You mentioned that you were doing tours before you became
yeah.
poorly. Did having a stoma or having these symptoms affect your ability to deploy?
So I didn't actually have the stoma when I deployed to the Falklands. Said the illness came when I was in the first tour, my first tour in the Falklands. Back,
Hmm.
had the surgery, then I had all the reversal, and then I think it was 2012 I went on my second tour of the Falklands. So I had reversal then, so it was into a J pouch. So I didn't actually deploy with a stoma, but I still had to deal with the symptoms, medication, understanding that they needed the medication out there because at the time I was taking codeine phosphate and loperamide hydrochloride, and that's simply because of the byproduct of it slowing down the
Yeah.
gut process.
Yeah.
So I didn't actually deploy the stoma, and I don't know. Maybe I should have delved into it a bit more, but I don't know how that looks. Saying that, as it stands now, I am now medically limited deployment. So now that I've gone back to a stoma, I'm classed as MLD, so medically limited deployment, which means I can be deployed to an area. If this goes to a medical board and they say, yeah, happy, I would be deployed to an area such as maybe Cyprus or other areas in the world that have good healthcare. So if anything went wrong, I'd have immediate healthcare. Now, if you think of the Falklands, the care I would need would probably end up in South America because I'm in North America. So that wouldn't happen. Logistically, that wouldn't happen. Cost, that wouldn't happen. So get
Yeah.
me back 18 hours on a flight, it's not going to happen. So they are very cautious in me having this stoma. I'd say I've got friends that are in the army, and they've obviously been through the same process, believe it or not. So I know people that's been through the same process, and I think the army, because they're more deployable than the air force, especially in my trade as a physical training instructor, there'll be a lot more sanctions around whether they will be still employable and probably let go from the military.
When you say that you know people in the army that have had your experience, as in you know people in the army who also have stomas?
So they've had the storm and then they've had the reversal as well, and funnily enough, both of them are physical training instructors. So whether
That's so funny.
trade and the stress. I don't know. But and again, it just shows that it doesn't what's the word I'm looking for? Uh,
Prevent you from
no,
doing
yeah,
anything?
yeah, in some terms, but also it can happen to any fit, healthy individual. It doesn't matter how fit and healthy you are.
Yeah.
These things can happen to you, and in some ways, I'd say that it's being physically active and being physically robust, it does help. Well, it certainly helped me to bounce back a lot quicker. And I know for a fact it's helped them to bounce back quicker. And actually, we provided that support network for each other as well.
That's so
Yeah,
nice.
yeah,
You've mentioned that you had a
yeah,
reversal, and obviously that's now been undone. You've also mentioned that the other people that you know in the army have had a
yeah.
reversal. Talk me through the process of why you chose to have it, and then potentially what it was like, what your experience was like when you had had it.
Right, okay. So the reversal for me, I chose to have the reversal, and that was probably under the guise of what the surgeon was saying as well, because it was originally diagnosed as ulcerative colitis.
Hmm.
Obviously, I had the choice then of having the reversal and being early 20s. Um, it was, I guess, in the initial stage, quite hard for me to get my head around the fact that having a bag on the body, it was quite difficult, and it may seem a little bit kind of childish, maybe naive, and a little bit more a worry about what I may look like. But I wanted to have the freedom without that on my body, because it comes with a massive stigma. And unless there's a lot more education, a lot more information out there now, and the stigma is coming down. That's because of everything you guys are doing, people all across social networks, and it's
Mm.
phenomenal. But that's kind of the main reason I'm potentially saving my career as well, as we discussed, is that I didn't want a bag and then I needed to be deployable. Um, Having the reversal, it didn't work for me. and we speak about this all the time. It is very much an individual thing. Um, like I
Yeah.
said, I spent then 9, 10 years of still going to the toilet quite a lot, actually, having a lot of outputs, being really
Oh wow.
a lot of blockages as well. The amount of blockages, spending kind of between 2 to 5 days in hospital all the time because the intestinal blockages due to the scar tissue. So for me, the reversal really didn't work. The codeine, I was on a lot of codeine, and on reviewing the codeine, the doctor said, "Donny, now are you functioning? Because you're taking the top end of codeine, you're doing a very job.
Wow.
This is enough to knock a horse out." I said, I'm probably used to it by now, but it was the fact that I was still going to the toilet quite a lot. The output was quite a lot, and it was very difficult to manage having that. I was still rushing for the toilet, even though I didn't have pain in the stomach, probably because the codeine was just numbing all that pain. I think in hindsight, and I think we discussed this, is that I don't think I should have ever had the reversal. And this is the reason. And then I've come back to a bag, is like we discussed. I was getting very ill again, and at that point I'd had enough. I couldn't keep putting up with being in pain, and it found that I'd had fissures and perianal sepsis on review, and obviously they had to take everything down. And maybe that they said that it's indeterminate Crohn's, so maybe it's more indicative of Crohn's. This later stage. And in hindsight, really, I shouldn't have had the reversal and should have stuck with the bag, because the freedom you get with the bag now, I'm not sitting on the toilet all the time. It was a big thing.
Has having the bag back again been very transformative in terms of quality of life?
Absolutely, without a doubt. I mean, if I, it's easy to say, but if I could have my time again,
Mm.
holidays that my wife and I, before we had children, were going on, it was still a matter of urgency of going to the toilet. And sometimes I'd have to put some, like, a pad underneath there, just because there was leakage in and stuff like that. It's a horrible thing to say and hard to admit, but that's the reality of it, I guess.
Yeah.
And yeah, and it just sometimes tarnished some of the holiday experience we had, because we'd be going places and quite far away from the hotel if we want to get out and explore, and I'd just be constantly sweats, worrying about the toilet all the time. And I know this is an experience of all kind of, not so much ostomates, but those who have internal pouches. um so yeah, I think reversing it all now, I have so much freedom. Like I said, I've been able to do so much more stuff with the bag, and I've accepted that I've got a bag, and it was just a huge acceptance to thing. This is it for the rest of my life. But actually, it gives me so much more freedom. I don't worry about toilets. Yes, you have to deal with, like, sometimes having not blockages, the leakages, but you know what? That's
Hmm.
a very small thing, over the panic all the time about being near a toilet.
I want to talk a bit about fitness. You mentioned that being physically fit helped your recovery
Yeah.
enormously. What I'm kind of really interested in the training. I can't even imagine the type of training you have to go through to be in the Royal Air Force and then also to be a trainer for other people within that. But I'm imagining it was very intense. What were you able to sort of get back to that level of intensity after your surgeries, or have you changed the way that you look at fitness as a result?
Um, Probably not. I think, like I said, we know that physiologically and biologically, research shows us that the stronger and fitter you are, the more likely you are to recover from surgery. However, you still need that healing process to take back, and we can't accelerate that just because we start getting back to fitness quite quickly. You need that healing process, and I learned that the hard way, because as you probably know, my end stage rehab, I prolapsed twice going back, and that's exercise, rehabilitation, instructor, professional, and yet I still went back early. But I think, like I said, the encouragement, the way I am, the way I'm wired, in a way, is that I wanted to push myself to get back as quick as I can. And I think having the bag has really helped me go forward. The only thing I would say is that it took a long, long time to get back to any kind of resistance training and lifting, because of the abdominal bracing, because of the pressure that places on the stoma. But obviously, I understand the process. I've taken it slow, step by step. I've got myself stronger again. And like I said, I have veered slightly away from the CrossFit and the heavy lifting, the throwing weights above my head, purely because I don't want to go put the body under any undue stress. I think it might be
Mhm.
strong enough, but you just never know. But apart from that, I can carry out all my military duties. I can kind of hold my own when it comes to doing any fitness, and now I've veered down like the triathlon route, and I've been able to do an Ironman. Obviously, I did quite a few other kind of endurance events, um, and it's been, yes, we've had problems with leakages and stuff like that, but in the grand scheme of things, I'm doing above and beyond where I need to be. So having
That's
a bag has
amazing.
not held me back in any way. If anything, it's pushed me forward.
That's amazing to hear. In your professional experience, if someone has recently had surgery and it's been abdominal surgery, either keyhole or fully opened up, when they get a sign off from their doctor, what might be good first steps to take towards building their kind of physical fitness back up again?
First and foremost, I think you need to let the body recover. You know, it's trauma. It's controlled trauma, but it's still trauma to the body, and you're opening up the abdominal area. Again, whether it's laparoscopic or whether it's a full opening of the abdominal area, the process of healing needs to take place. And that's only accelerated by taking rest, getting the good nutrients on, getting the good kind of uh, nutrition into the body. I actually started, not providing, but I wrote my own program. Uh,
Oh, wow.
Early stages, and I still got that, and it's not never really gone anywhere. It's just my kind of personal development, and I said everyone's different, and people may be at different levels of activity prior to the surgery. So that's
Mm.
thing to consider. If someone's fairly sedentary and then they've gone through a surgery, I would argue it's going to take them a lot longer to even think about building up that physical activity. Because I had a base to start with, then in some ways that accelerated my recovery, and I was able to push on. But the best advice I can give is let the body take time to recover. Then slowly start introducing. All I was doing was about walking, just going for slow walks out, because keyhole surgery was a lot quicker. The second lot of surgery when I was opened up, that was very, very difficult. I felt like I was so bent over, I couldn't straighten up. So I was actually getting into a better body position, working
Mhm.
into body position, slight abdominal bracing, but very low level, sort of seated Pilates type stuff was key to really getting that kind of abdominal area back to where it needed to be. Then I was out walking. Then I started going a little bit faster, and this is probably between day one after surgery, right up to probably 6 to 8 weeks. I think, if I remember rightly, was just purely walking. That was it. Walking, obviously increasing the tempo, increasing the time that I was walking, the undulation that I was walking, so going uphill, so everything increasing that. Then getting back to water-based activity, so I could offload the body a little bit more. You can build
That's a good
the
idea.
water, the resistance to the water works well, helps with that kind of pressure and the healing process as well. Then when you get back to a gym, it's going through simple movement patterns. And they mean even just a squat to a chair, as opposed to anything more depth. But it's funny, you don't realize how much that encompasses. The body works so hard just to perform the simplest of exercise. Until those abdominals have been cut, you just don't realize how much involvement there is. So it's very basic movement patterns to start with. And again, build that up over kind of 3, 4, 5, 6 weeks again. So you talk at
Mhm.
least 12 to 14 weeks between it. And we know within that 12 weeks, that's when the kind of physiological adaptations take place anyway. And then from there, then start introducing resistance type stuff, up in your CV and stuff. What I unfortunately see quite often on the social media, and this is probably the worst thing I can see. There's a lot of good things, but sometimes I look at things and, some of the what they call it, forums, people discuss
Mhm.
things. There's a lot of stuff that people say, yeah, you can get back. I was getting back really early doing this, and I was getting back, lifting and doing all these, and I'm thinking, probably not the right advice to be given, because everyone's different. It's great that people can get back earlier, fine, but you don't know what consequences it's going to have for any other person. Um, I didn't. For me, there wasn't really anything out there as a post surgical procedure for this type of surgery, and a fitness training program. So I think there
Mhm.
may be not so much a gap in the market, but a way that people can be helped if they had this. Um, that's kind of why I've saved this. I put it I've saved it on my computer. It's there. It's a good reference. I have kind of discussed this with people in the past that I know, um, and it'd be a good way of maybe at some point in the near future sharing that with people.
I think that would be amazingly helpful for a lot of people. It's one of the most common questions we actually get asked is can I exercise once I've had this surgery? What exercises can I do? What should I avoid? There's so many questions out there and you're right, there's not really one central place to go for the
And I've
answers.
wanted to dive in sometimes on these forums I was alluding to. I wanted to dive in and gone, do you know what? This is what. But then I think I can give a little bit, but then unfortunately, I don't have the time to really invest and go, do you know what? This is what you should be doing, and really take someone through, maybe after my military career, 3 years' time, maybe that's something I can look at doing. Um,
Mm.
which sounds a bit selfish, but, work constraints, family constraints, my own.
No, of course.
But yeah, I've held back from diving in and go, do you know what? Try this. Because if I was to give something to someone to try, I'd want to follow that through and make sure
Yeah.
right. But because I'm not working in that kind of medical capacity or something like that, I think it would be wrong of me to advise without discussing that as a client-based kind of discussion, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that seems extremely sensible and the opposite of selfish. We've spoken about kind of the physical side. I wondered if you'd be happy to touch upon the kind of mental health side of things. You alluded to the fact that that's potentially a bit more difficult anyway to kind of recover from.
Yeah.
What what would you say are the kind of sticking points or frustrations that you felt potentially after your surgeries, and how did you tackle them or get through those moments?
Um, so what the military do as well is that they provide you with some kind of welfare service. So I was put in touch with a lady that worked for SAFA because I was deemed as long-term sick and therefore I needed the support. I was advised I needed the support. Now, I was going through a tough time, obviously in my head thinking, young lad, obviously having a bag, this kind of stuff, and why has this happened to me? I'm a fit individual. This shouldn't be happening. I do everything to
Mm.
avoid any illness, and yet this has happened to me. By the by, I was put in touch with a lovely lady called Jill. She's phenomenal, right? Impartial. I just went to speak to her. We had discussions, and they can be quite emotional because sometimes it's difficult to share those. But I think
Mm.
it was. I think it's I didn't struggle with mental health. It's hard to admit. I think mental health is is a broad spectrum, isn't it? And I maybe in some ways the military, my kind of sporting background has taught me to, do you know what? Whatever adversity you face, you're just going to push through anyway. And sometimes that's not always the answer. So having Jules to kind of discuss that with, as well as my wife, obviously being hugely supportive. There's some things you can't discuss with some people. You just feel like maybe you don't want to. But Joe's being impartial is brilliant. So I had the support there, but that didn't mean that sometimes you think you do struggle. You still question. You still kind of have those moments thinking, this is something really tough for me to be going through. But I had the support. I surrounded myself with the right people. I spoke to other people. The forums were great. There is a lot of advice out there. It's good to see how people move on. Um, I guess I guess the answer to it was just having the right people around me, supportive, positive, and yeah, and just believing that that's no matter what this element is, this is just a point of reference. This is a point of reference that I'm going to work from. Not a place of residence, if that makes sense. This isn't how it's going to be. I know I'm going to move forward, but I need to get have the right people around me, find the right avenues to move forward. If that makes any sense. So mental health, would I say I didn't really in the military we have the Defence Medical Health Services, and you go down there, you can get referred on that way. But I came back because that still has a stigma. It still has a stigma. I didn't want that. I didn't want to feel like I needed to go down that. I think I had the right people around me to maybe circumnavigate that, if that makes sense. But it doesn't mean
Mm.
that I still sometimes don't think, geez, this is tough. This. When you get leakages, you wake up and you go, oh my god, it's a mess. You think, why is this happening? But
Mm.
it's better than and being in exercise rehabilitation, I've seen people that I would say are in a much worse position or had hugely more life changing surgery and injuries that I can deal with what I'm dealing with. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that must give you so much kind of perspective on life, seeing people's other people's
Yeah, yeah,
traumas.
and but also you can empathise. Yes, they might not be in the same position and they'll see the same surgery, but you've got people losing multiple limbs. You've got people waking up that can't move, quadriplegics and stuff like that. You think then they are still in some kind. I know for a fact they'll still be in dark moments. There's still going to be things going through their head, and you can't fathom what that might look like. From physically active to suddenly having this horrendous life-changing injury, whether that be in combat or whether that just be an RTA, a road traffic accident, whatever that is, you see them all. um, Either way, it's changed their life, and
Yeah.
it's having the right support. They can, if they can push on, surely I can push on. It's just dealing with a different way of going to the toilet. And the
Yeah.
hardest thing, we had a little discussion before. I think one of the hardest things I found is obviously not found, but having George before Nancy, like it was him seeing me with this bag, and
Just to be clear, George is your
yeah,
son?
he's sort of 6 years.
Yes.
This is obviously only 3 when he obviously seen when I had the back to the bag. And I remember coming into the toilet and going, "Daddy, I'll have one of them when I'm older." But I tried to normal, and that was tough. I was like, you joked that back a bit, and I was like, you know what, you won't. But even if you do, we know how to deal with this. And I tried to normalize it for him. Do you know what I mean? So you can see that that's okay. Um, because you never know. We don't know whether this is, yes, this is genetic, but not necessarily hereditary. So I don't know if they're going to ever experience this. I pray that they don't. I have 2 other
Mhm.
siblings that luckily haven't. In a way, I think I'm more stronger minded and a person I'm glad it's happened to me and not them. But I wouldn't want my children to go through what I've gone through. Um, but they've always got the right support network around them if that ever, God forbid, that doesn't happen.
Did you have to explain your bag to George when he asked about it, or was it never kind of explained in terms of how it worked? I asked because I know a lot of parents come to a kind of similar position where they're not really sure how to tell their children about it in a kind of positive
Yeah,
way.
there's my wife actually. She bought a book. I can't remember off the top of my head what the book's called, but it's all about having an ileostomy, and I think it's something.
Oh
Could be wrong.
wow.
It could be about a bear, a boy and his bear, and a bear. I can't remember what it was. It sounds really vague now, but it was a good book as well. So we tried to help him understand. He's sharp. He's a sharp. He's not like me. He's not my wife. He's very very sharp and definitely the and the beauty for that matter. But either way, I think we try to normalise it so he can see it. It's absolutely fine. Now explaining to him, he just wanted to prod around and look at the stoma, the strawberry, as you could see, would look like a strawberry, didn't it? Um, but yeah, so I show him everything. He watched me change things. He helped me change it, but he doesn't know. He does know it's different, but that's just the way Daddy is, and so it's just a different way to go into the toilet. So I say. So the doctor has
Yeah.
made me go to the toilet this way, which is great. I'm happy the doctor's put me this way, and he's like, and that's it, and off he goes. So
If you do find the name of that book, please let me know and I'll pop it into the notes of this episode because it might be really
Yeah,
helpful.
yeah, I absolutely will. That's it. It's just education. It's just letting your children experience what's going on, and the good side of things. What's the good side of things? Um, yeah, and do you know what? He is very inquisitive, and like I said, he just wants to poke around and have a look. And that's fine. I won't ever, like I say, you can't do it. And Nancy, obviously, she's been to. She's hugely questioned why, everything all the time, but she doesn't understand. She just watches me go to the toilet. She's like this, just fascinated.
What would you say to anyone who has stoma surgery coming up either in the near future or is suffering with IBD and knows that that's potentially going to be something that happens? What what can they expect and potentially what should they be aware of?
That's a good question because it is very, like we say this all the time. It's very individual. How this affects people is going to be very individual. You have to you have to understand that this is a good place to go. Like I said, if anyone was going to go through the surgery and they had the chance of having a reversal, it's tough. But I would say please heavily consider not having a reversal. I know you may be pretty young, but please don't ever risk consider it because even though I know everyone's different, a lot of people that live with pouches, J pouch and stuff, they suffer. They do suffer. So having the bag, it's a big life changing experience. But once you find the the bag that's right for you. And there's loads of different companies out there, and they're great in sending you kind of samples out, so you can really find what's right for your skin and what's right for your body. Try everything you can. Be really involved with the stoma nurse and the consultant if possible, and whoever your medical officers are. Civvy Street would just be your doctor. And just find out, get all the kind of different information, but get on the forums, talk to people, don't hide it away, and really find what's right for your body. But just accept that it's a different way of going to the toilet. That's all it is. That everything can be so discreet. It's not the same as it used to be. People used to think these bags are down your legs and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Not the same. They're small. They're intimate. It's a huge game changer having a bag in a good way more than a bad way. It gives you so much freedom. You don't worry about toilets. It is such a positive thing to have, and I think having like Ostique and other companies discuss these things and come up with better ways of managing the stoma is it's a success. It's an absolute success. And like I said, there's so many good things out there now. Unless I told someone I had a stoma, and I'm quite forward and I'll discuss it. It's not a drama. I won't just drop it straight in a conversation because that would just be weird. But if someone asks me about surgery and stuff like that, I'm more than happy to discuss, to chat shit.
On that note, John, thank you so much for being here. I'm thrilled we finally got to do this. We've been trying to get this done for a while.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm really looking forward to this episode coming out and everyone hearing about it.
Thank you so much for having me on. And I hope that in doing this, like I said, this is a great place to be and for people to come for point of reference and understand how good life can be with a stoma. Yes, there's challenges, but it's a great way of going forward because why suffer? Why suffer? This is not a way of suffering.
Thank you for being so positive and for helping people through their own journeys. It's really appreciated.
No problem at all. Lovely to speak to you.
You too. Speak soon.
Thanks, Liv.
Bye.
Bye.
Have you seen the new Ostique skins yet? Ostique skins are revolutionary ostomy pouch covers that were created to make the wearer feel confident, sexy and powerful in all of life's moments. From moments of intimacy to lounging by the pool, conquering a workout or simply heading out to lunch, skins have you covered. Even better, they're compatible with all major colostomy and ileostomy bags. Ostique skins are available in a range of colours and skin tones, and they're made from a revolutionary material that's completely waterproof, high quality, soft and comfortable. Skins are easy to use, even with reduced dexterity, and they work with both closed and drainable bags. Plus, skins are also environmentally friendly and vegan. There are 4 bundles available to buy now, and you can also purchase individual skins. Head to ostique.co.uk to find out more.